Hey everyone, before we get into the video today, I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of Dota Alchemy for the 20,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Jenkins and I are so blown away at the amount of support that we've gotten from this community, and we're super happy to be a part of it. As a result, we wanted to do a quick giveaway with you guys just to show our appreciation for the continued support of Dota Alchemy. So we're going to be giving away a Pudge Arcana, and all you have to do to enter is just go to dotaalchemy.com. The link will be exactly to the video that you need to go to on dotaalchemy.com. It's in the description below. Just go to the video, make an account. You don't have to subscribe, and just comment on the video on dotaalchemy.com. Again, the link is in the description below. That will enter you into the giveaway. We will do the drawing on Monday, and the winner gets a Pudge Arcana. So thank you so much for your continued support. We genuinely really appreciate it. And without further ado, enjoy the video. What's up everyone? This is Donnie, aka Elevated with Dota Alchemy, and this is why you suck at team fighting and how to get better at it. Reason number 1. You show up with low resources. Now this one is pretty straightforward. When I say resources, I mean things like HP, mana, cooldowns of your big spells, and detection if you're facing invisible heroes. You simply cannot really fight if you can't cast spells, so you need to make sure you have mana, and if you show up to fight with very low HP, chances are you're not going to last very long and be able to even get off the spells if you do have mana. Some of the other resources like detection for invisible heroes or big spells on your allies are things that are a little bit harder to keep track of since it's not always your responsibility to have them. However, it is your responsibility to know if your offlane Enigma has his black hole off of cooldown before you take a team fight. If you're just blindly jumping into team fight after team fight with low resources and unable to finish kills because you simply can't cast the spells or can't detect the heroes that are running away from you, you're setting yourself up at a massive disadvantage. Anytime you're back in the fountain, just think, are you going to be taking a fight soon, or are you going to be using your mana or HP to farm camps? Buy yourself some clarities, have a health potion in your backpack, and if you're having problems with invisible heroes, for the love of God, just buy some dust. It does not matter what position you're in, and if your teammates don't have it, buy it for them too and just put it in their backpack. Reason number 2. You don't have a plan or target priority before you go into a fight. When you break it down, the decisions that you have to make during a team fight in Dota 2 happen in microseconds. That's not a lot of time to make up your mind, decide what hero you want to go on, decide what spell you want to cast and when, and then execute that action. If you have a plan of attack before you take the fight, you can make decisions inhumanly fast because they're already made. If you've ever wondered how that pro player consistently finds those 3-man RPs or 5-man black holes or massive game-changing echo slams, or gets their BKB off at just the right time, or manta dodges a skill that they barely even saw coming, it's because they planned for these things to happen. It's also how you see these teams come back from massive deficits because they figure out what the exact plan of attack is for a fight that will make it easy for them despite being at a 20k disadvantage. If you know that the enemy Warlock or Silencer is the ultimate counter initiator for the enemy team, and you are able to jump that hero and eliminate them from the fight, suddenly the entire fight for your whole team becomes way easier. And therefore, you're able to take a fight that you would normally lose but win it because you have a better plan than the other team does. I'll be honest, most pub games I've ever played, the fighting ends up being just 5 heroes randomly running at each other, and you notice how I said random, because the outcomes of these fights tend to be fairly random since there is no coordination and no planning beforehand. This is why you can have a massive impact in your ability to win team fights if you just do a little bit of foresight and plan what your next couple of moves will be. Positioning is another huge part of this equation, and knowing where you should be and when you need to be there. It's the difference between patiently waiting on the sideline for the enemy Silencer to use his ultimate too early and then jumping in afterwards and hitting that 4-man game-winning black hole, versus jumping early, black holing an important hero, but ultimately losing the team fight because you no longer have that big ability available to you. Reason number 3, you don't really consider the draft when heading into a team fight. Here's the thing. You probably picked your hero because you enjoy playing it and you thought it would be good for this game. But not every game is created equal for everyone involved. Each draft is different, and even though you might be the most godly invoker player in the entire world, if you're hard countered in fights by multiple heroes on the enemy team, you're going to look pretty mediocre on the hero. It's really important to pay attention to how hard it actually feels to take fights, and this can even change throughout the course of a game depending on the items that every hero has. And it's also really important to apply this to your teammates. Just because you last picked the perfect hero for the game and countered the entire enemy team does not mean that the rest of your team has countered the enemy team. In fact, most of them have probably been counterpicked by the enemy heroes and are having varying degrees of difficulty getting things done. Keeping this in mind will help you understand what heroes you need to protect, which heroes you should be targeting, and whether you need more items before you actually take a winning team fight. If you're, say, an Ursa and you don't have a BKB facing a bunch of stuns or roots, you're not going to be doing very much damage. On the other hand, if you're a Weaver and there's no hard lockdown on the other team, then you can pretty much do whatever you want and build whatever items you want. Reason number 4. You tunnel vision during fights and lose track of what's going on in the bigger picture. This is definitely one of the hardest things to work on because during fights, it's very hard to keep track of everything that's going on. You have a finite area on your screen that you can see, and there are so many different variables that are happening in various different locations. The best thing that you can do is work on your camera placement and even go back to your replays and rewatch the fights with free camera to see if there's things that you missed during a lost fight. Developing this broader awareness will allow you to notice when important spells have been used that can change the fight, whether they're on cooldown or not. It will also allow you to notice when your teammates might need help, whether they're in trouble and close to dying, or whether they are close to finishing off an opponent but don't have enough damage without your help. This will allow you to finish out fights in a cleaner way and not just focus on one hero specifically and then be lost once you're done dealing with them. Reason number 5. You believe that your life is the most important part of the game, and losing it is the worst thing that can possibly happen in the entire game of Dota. This is another aspect of teamfighting that is really difficult to understand and varies drastically between different games and different lineups. There are some games where it's more important for you to die early in a fight if you absorb a bunch of important ultimates. Let's say you are a Spectre and you walk up a hill onto the high ground and you get black holed and die at the very beginning of the fight. Sometimes this is what you need to have happen to win the fight because the black hole is now no longer available and you have buyback, so you're able to just buy back and haunt into the fight. There's a lot of players out there that would be too scared to sacrifice their first life, and they would just simply wait for their team to maybe initiate the fight and hope to be able to press haunt at the perfect time. And as a result, their teammates all get black holed and die, and suddenly it's just Spectre against 5, and Spectre loses the fight regardless. So in that situation, it's much better for the Spectre to die because they have a method for rejoining the fight, and they have the ability to trade that one life for essentially the only win condition that the other team had for the fight. Another good example is if you're an initiating support, let's say you're an Earth Spirit or an Axe or a Lion with a Blink Dagger, and you see an important target on the other team, but they also have very good counter initiation. Let's say they have a Global Silence and a Magnus with reverse polarity off of cooldown. You jump in on an important hero and suddenly the other team is going to have to react, and most likely they're going to react in a panic because they don't have a plan for the scenario. So the Silencer is going to press Global Silence, the Magnus is going to jump in and RPU, and suddenly as a support or an initiator like an Axe, you've absorbed 2 game-winning ultimates for the price of your life. And now the rest of your team, despite being 4-on-5, doesn't have to deal with those extremely important game-winning ultimates. And as a result, they can then counter initiate and take a fight on their terms with a big advantage in terms of the cooldown resources available to them. A final part of this question that I wanted to answer, because we've been getting asked this a lot, is if I'm a support, should I die for my carry? And the answer is it completely depends. If you don't have buyback and you need to be able to take a 5-on-5 fight and your carry does have buyback, then you probably should not trade your life for theirs, because they will be able to get back into the fight and you will not. On the other hand, if you trading your life will allow your carry to live and save the game, then it's totally worth it. Also, if you trading your life will allow your carry to win the fight, then again, it's probably totally worth it. Buyback plays a huge role in all of these scenarios, but even without buyback, sometimes it can be worth it to just die for your team if it means that your team's going to be able to win the game as a result of it. In a lot of these scenarios, it's just going to come down to your own judgment, and that requires you to have played enough games to have acquired the experience and knowledge necessary to recognize when it's a good situation to trade your life for a teamfight win. Reason number 6, you continually take bad fights. And that might sound like a very simplistic thing to say. Of course, you don't want to take a bad fight. But let's actually define the term bad fight, because I think that makes it easier to recognize these scenarios in a game and just completely avoid them. I define bad fights as any fight that you have a very clear disadvantage in either positioning, numbers, or vision. A great example of this is chasing the enemy to the shrine, up a hill, to their own shrine where they have healing, they have reinforcements teleporting in. You don't have vision there. This happens all the time. You take a long drawn out fight. You might have killed some heroes at the very beginning of it, and then you're trying to chase down the last couple heroes on the other team as they run back towards their shrine. Their teammates are respawning, TPing into the shrine to save their team, and suddenly you're running into full HP, full mana, full cooldown heroes up a hill with no vision when you are at low resources from having taken a long drawn out fight. Sometimes these situations are a little bit harder to recognize than others, but for the most part, it's pretty easy to know when you have 2 heroes in a location starting a fight against 4 heroes on the other team. That seems like a pretty bad disadvantage, and that's something that you should basically never do. I'm always completely blown away when I see this in pubs because it seems so illogical to me. On the other hand, if you are jumping into a fight to start it and your teammates are running there or teleporting in to reinforce you, that's a completely different story. That's basically like the previous point of trading your own life to win a fight. Sometimes you have to be the one that gets there first and keeps the other team there to bait them into a fight that you can ultimately win. But usually that requires some good communication between you and your teammates to pull off. I know that team fighting is the most fun part of Dota, but it's not the only part. And if you're always looking for fights and not selecting the good ones, you're probably throwing away a lot of games. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. I plan to go into more depth on each one of these points in subsequent videos, so stay tuned for those on DotaAlchemy.com. I really appreciate you watching this. Please let me know if you enjoyed this video, and we will see you in the next one.